1 minute ago, the carefully maintained facade of royal composure finally cracked. While Kensington Palace continues to issue polite, diplomatically worded updates about Princess Catherine's recovery, Prince William has just revealed a heartbreaking truth that changes everything we thought we knew about the crisis unfolding behind the walls of the London clinic. This isn't just a husband visiting his wife. This is a future king who has effectively moved into a hospital room, refusing to leave the bedside of the woman who has become the very spine of the modern monarchy. Sources confirm that for the past 72 hours, William has barely slept. The image of the Prince of Wales, usually so poised and perfectly turned out, has been replaced by a man haunted by the rhythmic beep of monitors and the heavy silence of a room that feels far too sterile for the vibrant life it contains. He has been sleeping in a stiff medical chair designed for brief visits, not nightly vigils, his hand clasped tightly around hers, even as she sleeps, terrified that if he lets go, the fragile thread holding their world together might snap. The truth he revealed, leaked through aides, who can no longer hide the severity of the situation, is that the complications Catherine is facing are far more complex than the planned abdominal surgery narrative initially suggested. William has reportedly told close friends that the nights are the hardest. It is in the quiet, merciless hours of the early morning, when the hospital hums with the sound of machinery rather than human voices, that the crushing reality of his position hits him. He is not just a prince waiting for a princess to heal. He is a partner watching his other half fight a battle they cannot win with titles, wealth, or protocol. This vigil is his silent rebellion against the institution's relentless demand for business as usual. The palace machine wants a schedule. William wants his wife. They want a timeline for a return to duties. He wants a timeline for when she will be able to smile without pain. For the first time in his life, the duty to the crown has been completely eclipsed by his duty to Catherine. He has cancelled meetings not just to be present, but because he physically cannot tear himself away from the terrifying possibility that things could change in an instant. What the public statement failed to capture, William's vigil has made clear. This is not a routine recovery, it is a siege. And inside that room, the future king is fighting the most desperate battle of his life, armed with nothing but his presence and a terrifying realization that the woman who humanizes the monarchy is currently fighting for her own future. The clock struck 4:37 p.m. this Saturday afternoon when the notification finally hit phones across Britain. It was a timing masterstroke by the palace communications team, late enough to miss the rigorous interrogation of the midday political shows, but early enough to dominate the evening news cycle with a controlled narrative. But for those of us who have spent decades decoding the cryptic language of the monarchy, the statement was not a reassurance. It was a terrifying admission of defeat, masked in diplomatic velvet. The official text read, "Her Royal Highness continues to receive treatment and care at the London clinic." To the casual observer, it sounds routine. But in the lexicon of royal announcements, where every syllable is weighed against the stock market and public morale, the absence of the phrase "as expected" is a screaming siren. There was no mention of the original discharge date, no mention of a transfer to Adelaide Cottage, and most devastatingly, absolute silence regarding Christmas. What the public wasn't told, what was carefully scrubbed from that sterilized press release, is the chaotic scene that unfolded inside the London clinic just hours before. Sources indicate that the medical team, led by the formidable doctor, Elizabeth Sharma, had to deliver news that no amount of royal influence could change. The routine post-surgery observation had spiraled. Somewhere between the initial procedure and this morning's rounds, complications emerged that transformed a straightforward recovery path into a medical labyrinth with no clear exit. Catherine, a woman who has endured 3 difficult pregnancies and 20 years of relentless public scrutiny with a smile, reportedly argued against the release of such a vague statement. Her first instinct, as always, was to protect. She wanted to maintain the fiction of an imminent return, not for her own vanity, but to shield George, Charlotte, and Louis from the truth that their mother is not just resting, but fighting. But the reality behind the closed doors of her private suite is undeniable. The flowers sent by well-wishers cover every surface, turning the room into a suffocating garden. Yet they cannot hide the IV lines or the monitors that now dictate the rhythm of the future queen's life. The statement was a diplomatic lie, not because it was false, but because it omitted the only truth that matters. The Princess of Wales is currently facing a battle that has indefinitely suspended her role as a mother, forcing the palace to admit, in the quietest way possible, that she isn't coming home. If the silence at the hospital is deafening, the silence at Adelaide Cottage is heartbreaking. This was supposed to be the weekend the festive season truly began for the Wales children. The calendar on the nursery wall had been marked with a bright red circle for Mummy's homecoming, but tonight, William has faced the most excruciating task of his fatherhood. Walking into that nursery, not with a returning mother, but with a shattered promise. The impact of Catherine's absence is tearing through the children's lives in ways that official statements carefully ignore. Prince George, at just 11 years old, has adopted a heartbreaking stoicism that mirrors his father's. Palace insiders report that the future king has stopped asking when Mummy is coming home. Instead, he asks quieter, adult questions that no child should have to form. Is she in pain? Are the doctors telling us everything? He has sensed the shift in the atmosphere, the whispered conversations between staff, the dark circles under his father's eyes, and has taken on a burden of maturity far too heavy for his young shoulders. Princess Charlotte, usually the spirited firecracker of the family, has retreated into an unusual, worrisome quietness. She spends hours in her room, creating elaborate get-well cards that she knows she cannot deliver in person. Sources say she asked William if she could video call Catherine every single hour, and William, unable to say no to his daughter's pleading eyes, arranged it. But these calls are a double-edged sword. When the screen lights up, Catherine performs a miracle of willpower, smiling, asking about school, hiding every trace of the agony she is enduring. But the moment the screen goes black, the mask drops, leaving Charlotte confused by the disconnect between her mother's brave smile and the reality of her continued absence. But it is 6-year-old Prince Louis who is struggling the most, in a way that would break any parent's heart. Too young to grasp the abstract concepts of recovery timelines or medical complications, Louis only understands the raw void where his mother used to be. The most devastating detail leaking from the household is that Louis has started sleeping with one of Catherine's silk scarves clutched tightly in his small fist. Staff have found him breathing in the faint, lingering scent of her perfume, as if sheer force of longing could summon her back through the fabric. He responds to every explanation with fresh tears, his world completely upended by the disappearance of his primary source of comfort. This is the reality the palace fears most. It isn't just a health crisis, it is a family crisis. The Christmas tree stands decorated in the corner of the living room, a task William insisted on keeping to maintain normalcy, but it feels like a hollow prop in a play that has lost its lead actress. The lights are twinkling, but the house is dark. William is trying to be both father and mother, trying to fill a void that is unfillable, while knowing that tomorrow he must leave them again to return to the hospital vigil, leaving 3 children to wonder if Christmas is coming at all. While Catherine fights her battle in a hospital bed, Prince William is fighting a different kind of war, one against the crushing, relentless machinery of the monarchy itself. To the outside world, the royal family is an institution of unshakable stability. But insiders report that behind the scenes, William is currently a man pushed to his absolute breaking point, torn violently between the vows he made to his wife and the oath he swore to the crown. The physical toll on the Prince of Wales is becoming impossible to hide. Palace aides have whispered about the alarming weight he has lost in just 2 weeks, the way his hands shake slightly when he thinks no one is watching, and the haunted look in his eyes that no amount of PR management can edit out. He is living a double life, a devoted nurse by night, sleeping in a chair and holding a sick bag, and a composed statesman by day, forced to answer emails and approve schedules as if his world isn't collapsing. The pressure from the men in gray suits, the courtiers who run the palace, is mounting. They are terrified. With King Charles facing his own health battles and Catherine indefinitely out of action, the monarchy is looking dangerously thin. They need William to be visible. They need him to smile, to wave, to reassure a jittery public that the institution is strong. But for the first time in his life, William is pushing back. He has reportedly told senior aides that he doesn't care about the optics. He cares about his wife. In this vacuum of power, it is not the royal family stepping up to save the day, but the Middletons. This is the untold story of the crisis. Carol and Michael Middleton have essentially moved into Kensington Palace, forming a protective ring of steel around the children. They are the ones handling the school runs, the tearful bedtimes, and the chaotic dinners, providing the warmth and stability that the cold protocols of the palace cannot offer. While the institution worries about brand image, Carol Middleton is worried about her daughter's life and her grandchildren's hearts. But even with their help, the burden on William is suffocating. He is looking at a future that suddenly feels terrifyingly uncertain. The palace had announced a return after Easter, a timeline based on optimism. Now, faced with complications that refuse to follow the script, William is forced to confront a question that haunts him in the dark quiet of the London clinic. What happens if she doesn't bounce back? What happens if the woman who is the emotional engine of the entire family is permanently changed by this ordeal? The crown demands a king, but right now, the man destined to wear it is just a terrified husband, realizing that without Catherine, the throne looks less like a destiny and more like a prison. For Prince William, the sterile smell of the hospital corridor brings back memories that he has spent a lifetime trying to bury. As he sits by Catherine's bedside in the dim light of the evening, sources close to the prince reveal that he is not just battling the current crisis, he is wrestling with the ghosts of the past. He has lost a Princess of Wales before. He knows, better than anyone on this planet, the devastating cost of a life lived in the public eye and the terrifying fragility of the women who are asked to carry the weight of the crown. Friends suggest that William is tormented by a singular, crushing guilt, the promise he made to the Middletons. On the day he married Catherine, he vowed to protect her, to ensure she would never be chewed up by the machinery of the monarchy the way his mother was. But now, seeing her hooked up to machines, pale and exhausted, battling complications that no amount of security or wealth can fight, he feels he has failed. The medical reality is stark, but the psychological toll on William is a silent emergency that the palace is desperate to keep hidden. The conversation inside the royal household has shifted from, "When will she return?" to a far more terrifying question, "Will she ever be the same?" Dr. Chararma and her team have been meticulously honest. While they expect a recovery, they have warned that the trauma Catherine's body has endured is significant. This is not a case of bouncing back to cutting ribbons and shaking hands next week. We are looking at a fundamental shift in the royal landscape. The fear, the one that keeps courtiers awake at night and makes William hold his wife's hand a little tighter, is that the Catherine who returns to Adelaide Cottage may not be the same woman who left it. Chronic pain, long-term fatigue, or the need for permanent lifestyle adjustments are all possibilities on the table. The super-mum and super-royal who never put a foot wrong may need to disappear, replaced by a woman who must prioritize her survival over her duty. For the public, this is a shock. For William, it is a nightmare scenario where the future he meticulously built is crumbling. He is realizing that the institution he is destined to lead is entirely dependent on the health of one woman. Without Catherine, the modern monarchy loses its warmth, its glamour, and its heart. And as he watches her sleep, fighting a battle inside her own body, William is forced to confront the chilling realization that the happily ever after they worked so hard for is currently hanging by a thread. Usually, when a royal crisis hits, the British tabloids are like sharks in the water. They hunt for leaks, they publish grainy photos, they speculate wildly. But regarding Catherine's condition, there has been a strange, unsettling quiet across Fleet Street. This isn't just respect. It feels like an orchestrated blackout. And for those of us watching closely, this gentleman's agreement between the palace and the press is the most terrifying indicator of all. It suggests that the editors know something so grave, so sensitive, that even they, usually ruthless in their pursuit of sales, have agreed to back off. While the newspapers remain polite, social media has become a global vigil. Hashtags like number Pray for Kate and number Where is Kate are trending worldwide, creating a digital candlelit procession that spans continents. The public isn't buying the routine narrative anymore. People can feel the void. The Princess of Wales is not just a figurehead, she is the industry standard for royal visibility. Her sudden, total disappearance from the public eye, no photos, no waves from a car window, no zoomed-in shots of her leaving the hospital, is unprecedented. Comments flooding online platforms reveal a nation in collective anxiety. It feels like 1,997 again, one user wrote, chillingly referencing the days before Diana's death. The silence is louder than any announcement, wrote another. The public's intuition is screaming that the gap between the official statement, doing well, and the reality William's cancelled diary, the Middletons move-in, is a canyon of hidden truths. This disconnect is creating a dangerous vacuum. Without facts, fear is rushing in to fill the space. Rumors are swirling about comas, about surgeries gone wrong, about conditions far more permanent than abdominal issues. And the palace's refusal to release even a single photograph to quell the panic is being read not as privacy, but as proof that there is nothing reassuring to show. William knows this. He reads the headlines, he sees the online storms, but he is paralyzed. To release a photo of Catherine now likely looking frail, exhausted, and unlike her polished self would be an invasion of the dignity she prizes so highly. But to remain silent is to let the monsters of speculation grow. He is trapped in a lose-lose scenario, watching the world demanding proof of life from the woman he is simply trying to keep alive. The media blackout was meant to protect her, but in a cruel twist of irony, it has only convinced the world that the situation is far worse than anyone dares to say. Behind the thick, soundproofed doors of the London clinic, a grueling reality has set in that bears no resemblance to the polished image of the Princess of Wales we are used to seeing. We know Catherine as the action princess, the woman who plays tennis against champions, races, land yachts, and stands in high heels hours after giving birth. But sources reveal that the woman currently lying in that hospital bed is fighting a physical battle that has stripped away all that vitality, leaving behind a fragility that has shocked even her closest family members. The phrase abdominal surgery is a sanitized medical term that fails to capture the violence of the procedure Catherine has undergone. Medical experts speculate that for a recovery timeline to be this extensive, stretching from January to Easter and potentially beyond the surgery, was not just invasive, it was a major assault on the body's core systems. And now, her body is rebelling. Insiders describe a recovery process that is heartbreakingly volatile. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. There are days when she can sit up, smile at William, and perhaps manage a brief video call with the children. These moments bring a surge of hope, but they are often followed by days of crushing fatigue, where simply lifting her head feels like climbing a mountain, and where the pain management protocols have to be adjusted just to make existence bearable. This is the complication the palace alluded to, but refused to name. It isn't necessarily a single event, but a slow, grinding resistance to healing. Catherine, whose willpower is legendary, is finding that sheer determination cannot stitch tissues back together or force inflammation to subside. For a woman who is defined by her capability, her ability to keep calm and carry on, this total loss of physical agency is a psychological torment equal to the physical pain. Dr. Sharma has had to be the bearer of hard truths, acting as the guardrail against Catherine's desire to rush home. The doctor has reportedly told William, "The body keeps the score. If we push now, we pay later." This medical ultimatum is what is keeping Catherine in that room. Every time she asks about discharge dates, the medical team points to the charts, to the vital signs that refuse to stabilize completely, and to the undeniable fact that the sporty Duchess is currently in no condition to walk to a car, let alone walk back into her life. While William holds the line at the hospital, the shockwaves of Catherine's condition are shaking the very foundations of Buckingham Palace. King Charles, a man who waited 70 years to ascend the throne, is reportedly visibly distraught. Sources close to the monarch reveal that Charles views Catherine not just as a daughter-in-law, but as the beloved daughter he never had, and crucially, as the greatest asset the House of Windsor possesses. The king, battling his own health concerns, has been making private, low-profile visits to the London clinic. Witnesses describe a monarch who looks frailer than his official portraits suggest, walking with a heaviness that speaks of deep, personal fear. He knows better than anyone that the slimmed-down monarchy he envisioned has suddenly become a starving monarchy. Without Catherine, the glamour, the youth, and the connection to the next generation have evaporated, leaving behind an aging institution that feels dangerously out of touch. Queen Camilla, often the most polarizing figure in the family, has quietly become the Iron Grandmother. While she knows she can never replace Catherine in the public's heart, she has stepped up to fill the void in the children's lives. It is Camilla who is reportedly organizing the distractions for George, Charlotte, and Louis, sending hampers of treats, arranging quiet visits to Highgrove, and trying to keep the machinery of the family running while its heart is missing. Her relationship with William, often complicated, has shifted into a temporary truce forged in crisis. They are soldiers in the same trench, fighting to keep the show on the road. But looming over this tragedy is the deafening silence from across the Atlantic. In Montecito, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are reportedly watching the news unfold with a complex mix of shock and distance. The irony is bitter and inescapable. Harry wrote a memoir complaining about being the spare, about physical fights and emotional coldness. But now, faced with a genuine life-and-death crisis, the pettiness of those complaints stands in stark relief against the brutal reality of a hospital room. Sources suggest that William has built a wall of silence regarding his brother. He has no emotional bandwidth left to manage Harry's feelings or worry about leaks to the American press. The rift, which might have been healed by a lesser crisis, has instead been calcified by this one. William is realizing that in his darkest hour, the brother who promised to always be there is thousands of miles away, living a life of voluntary exile, while William bears the crushing weight of the crown and the care of a sick wife entirely alone. It is Christmas Eve in London. Outside the hospital walls, the city is alive with last-minute shoppers, carol singers, and the warm glow of festive lights reflecting off the Thames. But inside the private wing of the London clinic, the atmosphere is heavy, with a silence that no amount of tinsel can disguise. Tonight marks the breaking point of a tradition that has held the Wales family together for over a decade. For the first time, stockings will not be hung at the foot of Mummy's bed. For the first time, the night before Christmas story will be read by a father trying to keep his voice steady, while looking at an empty chair where his wife should be. Sources reveal that Prince William has spent the afternoon doing something heartbreakingly mundane, packing a Christmas survival kit to take to the hospital tomorrow morning. It contains not jewels or luxury items, but the small, intimate tokens of family life that Catherine is desperate for, handmade cards with glitter that spills everywhere, a recording of Louis singing Jingle Bells off-key, and a framed photo of the five of them from last summer, a reminder of happier times. He is trying to pack the spirit of Christmas into an overnight bag, knowing full well that he cannot pack the one thing she truly wants, her freedom to come home. At Adelaide Cottage, the children are being put to bed with a carefully modified version of the truth. They have been told that Father Christmas will still find them, even though Mummy isn't there to supervise the landing. But the magic is thin. Prince George reportedly asked if they could save their presents to open only when Catherine returns, a gesture of fierce loyalty that reportedly brought tears to the eyes of the household staff. They are holding their breath, waiting for a morning that they know will feel fundamentally wrong. Meanwhile, Catherine lies in the semi-darkness of her room, listening to the faint sounds of the city celebrating without her. The physical pain is managed by medication, but the emotional ache of separation on this specific night is acute, piercing through the numbness. She is imagining the bedtime routine she is missing, the excitement, the scattered carrot for Rudolph, the chaos of bath time. She knows that tomorrow, her children will walk into this sterile room, looking small and perhaps a little frightened by the medical equipment, and she will have to summon every ounce of remaining strength to be Mummy and not the patient. This is the night the reality truly sinks in. The hope of a last-minute miracle discharge has evaporated. The senior doctors have gone home to their own families. The lights in the corridor have dimmed, and the future queen consort is facing the starkest realization of her royal life. That beneath the titles, the palaces, and the global fame, she is just a mother separated from her children on the one night of the year when being together is the only thing that matters. Christmas morning broke over London with a grey, unforgiving sky, matching the mood inside the royal suite at the London Clinic. There were no paparazzi photos of the walk to church at Sandringham today, no perfect coats, no waving children, no smiles for the cameras. Instead, the defining image of this Christmas is one the public will never see. Prince William, exhausted and unshaven, helping his wife open a card made by Prince Louis, her hands trembling slightly as she held the glitter-covered paper. The family visit, when it finally happened, was brief and heartbreakingly controlled. Dr. Chararma allowed the children just 1 hour. Witnesses described the scene as bittersweet. The joy of reunion was overshadowed by the children's confusion at seeing their mother connected to IV lines, looking smaller and more fragile than the vibrant woman who usually commands the room. When the time came to leave, when William had to usher the children out to return to the care of their grandparents, the silence that descended back upon the room was heavier than ever before. As the sun sets on a Christmas that will go down in royal history for all the wrong reasons, a terrifying realization is settling over the House of Windsor. This is not just a bad month. We are entering unmapped territory. The palace's strategy of keep calm and carry on has collided with a medical reality that refuses to be managed. Experts are already calling the coming year the year of the void. Without Catherine, the diary is empty, the glamour is gone, and the connection to the public is severed. William is now facing a future he never rehearsed, trying to be a future king while his heart is entirely occupied by the role of a terrified husband. He knows that the road ahead is not paved with quick fixes. It is a long, steep climb through rehabilitation, physical therapy, and the psychological reconstruction of a family that has been shaken to its core. Tonight, as the rest of the world finishes their festive dinners, the vigil at the London Clinic continues. The chair is still uncomfortable, the monitors still beep, but something has fundamentally changed. The illusion of royal invincibility has been shattered, and as William holds Catherine's hand in the quiet darkness, he knows that even if she returns home, the innocence of their life before this crisis is gone forever. The princess will heal, but the scars on her body, on her family, and on the monarchy itself will remain as a permanent reminder of the Christmas when the crown almost lost its jewel.